Wonderful.
Okay. The purpose of our study, because it's not only my study, I work with one of my colleagues, Mr. Patache, was to identify constraints on Roma minority related with education in Romania. Why? Because the education, we believe, is the key to a better access and outcomes in the labor market. We use to identify these constraints two steps. First, literature review, a research on studies carried out on this topic, and we try to make some interviews with teachers of students belonging of Roma minority in order to identify these concerns in education. Based on literature review, particularly in case of children, low standard of living, marginalized communities, rural area, and culture and tradition may generate social exclusion and inequality. And in the case of Roma population, all these are still in our country. The risk of poverty is 10 times higher than in the case of the majority population. Among the general population, 20 partners have an income below the national poverty thresholds, while the rate is 70% for the Roma population. Almost 2/3 of the number of people who declare themselves to be Roma live in rural areas, and 50% in 2011 population census is the last one because the pandemic we don't make the population census last year, and maybe in 2022 will be a population census in my country. After these results, 50% of marginalized rural sectors are Roma communities. It is a fact well known that in Romania, by a law of national education, the states ensure equal rights of access to all levels and forms of pre-university and higher education, as well as to their lifelong learning, without any form of discrimination to Romanian citizens. This involves Roma community too. The legislative principles that govern Romanian education, such as ensuring equal opportunities and social inclusion, by focusing education on its beneficiaries, are tested by the real-life situation of Roma children and young people from this minority. In 2011, the enrollment rate in preschool education for Roma children was only 32% compared to 77% in the non-Roma case. The percentage of Roma children attending kindergarten was about 50% in 2016, but young Roma are more likely to be early school leavers. From this year, the last year of kindergarten and 11 and 12th grade are mandatory as part of compulsory education. Till now, we have only 10 years of compulsory education, and until 2030, all 3 years of kindergarten will be compulsory, according to an update to the National Education Law made by the Law 56 from 2019. The positive discrimination for Roma children and young people in education has been applied for more than 2 decades through a system of reserved place in high schools and universities. But unfortunately, especially in case of higher education, the reserved place remains free. Apart from a socio-economic background, equity challenges disproportionately affect Roma and students from rural areas who tend to have lower educational outcomes. Based on 2018 PISA results revealed that 44% of Romanian students were functionally illiterate, and the overall situation of Romanian education had worsened in the previous 9 years. Disadvantaged group students like Roma 2 with low functional literacy are more likely to leave school early, especially boys living in rural areas, and so Roma students. In Romania, students from a linguistic minority group may also receive education in their mother language, native language. But only Hungarian minority has exercised this right. The Roma minority may study Romani language in schools, but schools with Romanian language teaching, not like in case of Hungarian minority, they can teach in the native language. Also, the number of education units is decreasing in 2010 at about 30%. From the one registered in 2000, and this situation continues to decline. So the rural Roma community is particularly impacted by reduction in the number of rural educational units. All this based on a study conducted for the Romanian Secondary Education Project, is a national project for students belonging of disadvantaged groups. So in these disadvantaged groups are Roma minority too. That analyzed the results of bachelor exam in July 2020 session. Romania have a selective, inequitable educational system with big differences within urban and rural, between main school and the school from the periphery or from poor localities, between children receiving family support and those not. Local and central authorities have failed to provide a level playing field for the public education system and have demonstrated that they were not prepared for the pandemic. Examination results were affected by the pandemic in this bachelor's exam session, had a negative effect, especially since some students enrolled in the project program did not have the adequate technology and or reliable internet connection. When remote learning is the only possibility, right now with the pandemic situation, we remember about the John Dewey predicted that if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday, we will learn of tomorrow. Despite living in the digital age, it appears that we are not ready to implement the distance learning systems, and we face some obstacles such as lack of teachers, familiarization with this type of education, inability to equip students with functional devices connected to the internet, malfunctioning online platforms, poor availability of online learning materials, and an incoherent coordination of the educational system. Children from neglected groups will have problems adjusting education before the coronavirus. But now the online education accentuates the marginalization of these invisible children, so-called. the Roma children can afford to buy computers. And I observed that the ones who can afford the computer, they are not interested by from his culture to learn how to use a computer, or to make an effort to be to make some kind of learning. From an early age, in extended and traditional families, their grandfathers and parents instilled in them the role regarding the Roma women. The girl who became a woman is the mainstay of the house. She is wife and mother. Most of the Roma women, even if they go to school, do not capitalize on their education. These are some opinions from a teacher who works with students belonging to this minority. Most of the Roma, many teachers avoid sometimes working in schools with the predominance of Roma children, and the parents of the majority ethnicity prefer to choose another school than to have Roma children in their child's class. We often read in the media that Roma children are from another world, or that even if they have reserved places, they do not occupy them.
5 minutes, Laura.
Yes. I have only one here. We spoke with this Romani language teacher about this myth or reality regarding Roma. Another opinion that are revealed worsening of the situation of the Roma children is from a teacher in Roma community in before sanitary crisis. There are 23 students in her classroom. Now he managed to keep in touch with only 15 of her students. Also, a manager from a school and teacher too from Bucharest mentioned the fact that online the children from preschool and elementary school suffer the most. Quality and everything that makes a relevant learning experience has not been ensured. So for majority, for all the children, are problems in online system during the pandemic situation. But in the case of Roma communities, I know some schools where many of them don't succeed to pass the class. In general terms, the Roma community in Romania has a lower level of schooling, a higher level of literacy, a higher share of early school leavers, a low presence in higher education, and in general less school success than the majority population. The poverty that characterizes a large important proportion of the Roma population generates a chain effect. And based on my interview from Roma community, it seems that 300 children were affected by pandemic last year, and from this almost are from Roma minority. Thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Laura, for this overview of barriers in education. I can see that Pete Germans has raised a hand in the online audience. Pete?
I don't hear much.
Oh, I can.
With the sound,
yes.
I don't know if it's my fault.
No, it's not yours.
or the
yes.
Yeah, hello?
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, thank you for your talk, although it was a very depressing picture that you
There's the
painted.
micro, is it?
Yes, sorry.
I was wondering, given previous talk about the NTA system in Hungary and the empowering of the political elite of the Roma, whether you see any benefits coming from if such a system would be implemented in Romania. And the reason why I ask this question is because I have some sympathies with Brian Barry's theory, which opposes multiculturalism, and Brian Barry starts from the topics you have been discussing. So a point that Barry strongly makes is that the Roma political elite do not own their children, and from a normative perspective, this is an important issue that. Exactly this point that the Roma people do not own their children. So whatever we may think about multicultural accommodation of Roma elites, this is a point that we also should take with us. And so my further question would be whether you see a conflict between, so Barry, on the basis of this, Brian Barry proposes assimilation, as quickly as possible assimilation. Stop all talk about multicultural accommodation and go completely for assimilation. I was wondering if you would follow Barry to some extent, or if you see still some kinds of forms of multicultural accommodation of the Roma political elites that are still worthwhile, or what they would look like.
Yes, thank you for your question. If I understand well, you asked me if I rather agree with multiculture and promote the Roma minority culture and tradition, and if or I agree with the inclusion of this Roma. I believe that we must conserve the tradition and the culture, and if I don't know if in Hungary is the same situation regarding Roma minority, they have some rights in parliament, in our parliament, but such a consultative council, not they don't have the right to take some decision regarding their community. They are only asked if they have any suggestion regarding for strategy or something like this. And I try to find in my country a very strong Roma society or something like this. The Partida Roma in Romania is one of this kind of structure organization. Is an NGO, not with legal rights, and they are very is not an interest in Romania, in Roma community to spoke loud and clear. Sometimes I believe they have their own tradition and culture, and sometimes they are not interested to be in parliament, in other structures, to spoke for themselves. I don't know if I answered to the question.
Could I do a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
Would you say that? Okay, you would say no. You have to go through the Roma culture and the traditions. Do you say this because you think it would not work to go for complete assimilation, or do you say this for another reason? Sorry.
Yes, I believe that the assimilation is not a solution.
Mm.
Pete, if I may add on this, as is on the chair, because when I hear this word, we should go for total assimilation, and the Roma are probably, I mean, I have very no experience on the Roma and research on it. They are, but probably the closest we can come to what they call indigenous population in the US-Canadian context, in a European context. And when we know about the policies of complete assimilation which were conducted in northern Sweden with the Sami in the 1930s and 20s and the 50s and 60s, and especially with the mission schools in the US and Canada, and what has happened with that, I think these people are crazy. Let's say that we should go for complete assimilation as soon as possible.
It's a completely unpopular position. I understand, and I don't know whether I wouldn't want to make policy on this. But I think Barry has a point when he says that there, in some way, cultural elites of whatever groups, they do not own the individuals, and in the education issue, it shows itself very clearly that they. And when we think normatively about these issues, this is something that we need to take into account. There's no, when we approach it from the normative perspective, there's no reason why these groups should have ownership over these children.
But that is another story, I would say.
Yeah.
I would not mix that with the issue of complete assimilation. That you of course have to discuss participation and democratic forms of self-government.
Well, basically, Pete, you could say the same thing for the state. The state has also no right to claim the children. I mean, I see that point, and also from the historical perspective of the Bohemian lands. But actually, nobody has a claim to the children. Not even the parents.
I don't hear that's you. That I don't.
It was we have a problem with it. We don't have a microphone that's passed around here, so it's more or less. Yeah, but thanks for this common discussion.